Time I've heard you talk, by the way, local.
I've been using mic for a while actually.
Like on your streams and stuff?
Just every time you come in, there's something going wrong with my mic. So I've been doing it for a while.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, I don't watch Kirby anything.
Wow, this guy. Alright, local, do you have it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't, but just started.
Alright, alright. You can like watch the what happens, man. Like, you can just watch the stream or something.
Just pretend we're
I'm
doing
not used to
like we're talking about a book in English class, and you're just going off of what I say, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Alright. Okay, let's get started. Alright. Countdown. Alright. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so this is Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. It's a Metroidvania. First off, this is just like a tutorial level. Yeah, Gravel, go ahead.
There's 4 Kirbys in this game, and the other 3 are just computers. Basically, the point of the game is try to put the mirror back together, and you use like the Kirbys to help you out with like some of the puzzles you see here that swordsmankirby's just actually skipping.
Well, you're supposed to use them, but they're pretty useless.
Alright.
They're very hard to use.
Yeah, so right there is called a mix, and so a mix is basically just combining 2 enemies with an ability. So instead of trying to having the game decide which ability to give you, it gives you this roulette wheel that cycles through all the abilities in the same order, and if your timing is good, you can stop it on essentially whatever ability you want. And so this is common to a lot of Kirby speedruns. In this game, you want wheel at the beginning. So 100% is defined as visiting every room in the map, opening every chest, and opening every shortcut, in addition to just beating the game.
I mean, any percent, you just basically try to put like main boss pieces, mirror shards together. But in 100%, there's a lot more areas that you visit, and a lot more abilities to solve some puzzles that you get to use. It's a pretty interesting run compared to any percent, I think.
100% is a very fun category. Because of like, there's so many different ways to ruin stuff. Like, you can easily like misremember a room or like just forget like an item. Well, as you run the game more and more, it becomes very hard. You don't really misremember as well, like forget any items, but yeah.
It's just very intimidating when you start out because there's just a lot of places where things can, like, to know that you missed something is difficult. Checking the map is very slow. The percentage counter is not very fine. So even though it'll say something like the same percentage when you see it, that doesn't mean that you might not have missed one room or one chest or anything like that. So these big switches open up different areas. A lot of them are just like that area to someplace like the home world, for example. So that one is something that, for example, in an 80% run you would skip because of that cutscene, but in 100%, not only is hitting that switch required, but you also need to backtrack to this area eventually anyways. So one thing about wheel movement is that you just go and just sort of bowl through all the enemies, but if you notice that each time it makes a sound when it hits an enemy, Kirby sort of stops in place for a little while. And the amount of time it stops in place is roughly like 0.05 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'd say like a very important thing over the course of the whole run is to optimize this kind of stuff, which we call hit lag. Alright, so this is
like
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's not like a bunch of tricks or anything with wheel, but the optimization in this game with it is crazy. You want to explain that boss strat that you just did?
Yeah, you just sort of stand next to it and hit it with wheel. Yeah, that's about it. The thing about wheel in this, or sorry, with stone. The thing about stone in this game, yeah.
I thought of like head delay or something.
Yeah. The way that stone works in this game is that you can chain off multiple hits with one application, especially for a really big boss like
Wispy Clone.
Yeah, Wispy Clone, King Golem. And in general, though, you can actually get multiple hits on like pretty much mini bosses or bosses of any size. And there are a lot of like, I guess, interesting momentum things to say about stone that I guess I'll try to get into a little bit later.
So like, while wheel is like good for movement and everything, and it has a lot of invincibility on when it's moving around, it's not really good for boss fights mostly. So that's why you see like rock or sword in some cases and stuff like that for boss fights, because it just kills it a lot faster.
Right.
Also, water is probably the most terrifying section.
Oh, definitely, especially if you have Smash, then it's like, kill me now.
Yeah. So, in this game, like around a lot of Kirby's around this time period, if you take damage of any kind, you'll lose your ability. And especially in the water, because in this game you cannot... I hope I can jump back up. Oh. This is bad. Okay, I'm gonna go without it. I swear I should be able to get past that, but whatever, I'll go without it for now. Yeah, so losing wheel underwater is quite bad because there's no way to inhale. In a game like Kirby 64, you can still inhale stuff underwater, but in this one, you cannot.
Glad you get to showcase exactly what we were talking about, just how terrifying water is. Man,
Yeah.
I mean, technically you could inhale it if there is some ground, but there wasn't, so...
Right.
But yeah, anytime you like you get hit underwater, your star just floats to the the ability turns into a star close to the ceiling and it just breaks. So I forgot though that since this is 100%, you're like you don't have to go super far for this segment, don't you? Though.
Right. Yeah. This is about to end soon. Plus, I get Mini right here, which I'd have to throw away. So Mini is this ability that appears pretty much only in this game, and allows you to sneak through small crevices like this. The difference between Mini and regular Kirby, like a lot of the speed is actually the same, but you cannot float, and that's the main difference.
And it's a lot cuter, in my opinion.
Well, besides me, Swords and Kirby, I'm joined by Gravel Crusher and Local Mocal, who are also amazing mirror runners.
Sweet.
Sick.
Yeah. So the way that this run is divided up, there are a lot of dead ends, like boss fights and stuff like that. And the way that we think about it is that we divide up the run into many segments where we start at the home world and end by going back to the home world. And this can be done in a variety of ways. One way you can do it is to simply walk through a door, going back into the homeworld. That's only one time. There are a lot of dead ends, so for example, you could phone home, like using a warp star, like I just did. Or you can soft reset, which you saw during one of the bosses. And soft resetting is generally faster unless you want to keep the ability that you're currently using. So for example, I just got wheel, so I want to keep it. And so I phone home instead of reset.
And the 100% routes actually like changed quite a bit, I think, over the
It's changed a lot.
last few years.
Yeah, like the past 5 years or something like that.
It's just like it's cool because how many different ways you can like do the 100%. I mean, this one is the fastest, but there's just been very few small changes to just like what order you do things or how you do it. But it's just kind of interesting to see how many like segment changes there are in this run.
SK pointed out that you could actually do Mustard Mountain first, and then I was like, no way. And I was running through, I was like, oh my god, you could actually do Mustard Mountain first.
Yeah, so this game, there are 9 main areas, all alliterative. So this one right now is called Rainbow Route, or well, actually I'm on Carrot Castle now, but the previous one was Rainbow Route, Carrot Castle. The one with King Golem was called Moonlight Mansion, so on and so forth. And so Mustard Mountain, that Local alluded to, is an area that's going to be seen much later on in the run, and it's one of the more difficult sections.
Like this, I don't really actually know how many segments there are in 100%, but like any percent only has around like 8 mirror shards that you need to go to, and then like the final boss. So it's like technically in that one, 9 segments. 100% has probably like 37-ish.
Yeah, some like 30, somewhere between like let's say 33 and 37. I don't know the exact number.
It's either those you either soft reset or you go back to the main world, go to get some either items that you missed or because you ran into a dead end or something. It's
Right.
just it's very interesting how everything flows together, especially when you like finish one area, but you acquire an ability to go to another area that saves you time as well. So like, a lot of the areas actually have like a lot of different ways you can go. Like Carrot Castle has a lot of different areas that have different chests and stuff, and then there's just the fastest route to the boss in the area as well.
Right, and so the way that I'm going right now is not the fastest way to the boss. This is sort of like a very roundabout path that allows me to collect many chests.
And then there's also some like dead ends where it's like it looks like you're almost like finishing a game or a segment, but it really just like gives you some one-ups and resets you back to the normal world. So.
Yeah. This is Mega.
We don't get to see any of that either.
Yeah. So this is Mega Titan. The first phase, the only thing you can do is knock Mega Titan into the wall. And the second phase is a more traditional fight where you can directly damage the head.
This is actually where Wheel is like a lot better than most power-ups, I think.
Yeah, like it's definitely the best one here.
Yeah, it's terrible with Cutter, by the way.
Yeah, so it's very important to keep your wheel ability the entire time here. This is the only time you're actually going to see the Kirby dance, and this is because it's the only boss fight that we actually do end with wheel. The rest of them we use some other different power and then reset immediately afterwards. Alright, so now we're backtracking to the same area. This time I didn't lose wheel.
Thank God.
Yeah, so this is what the movement should actually look like.
Yeah, if you were doing like 80%.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, you meant because
Yeah, no, because I lost wheel last time like an idiot.
Also, it's kind of a pain. Some areas actually have doors that you can go through but can't come back out. It's like if you forget that you already visited an area and just like instinctually go through a door, you kind of just like have to reset the run.
Yeah. Yeah, it just has to.
Really bad.
Nothing else
like,
to do but just reset.
Yeah.
Reset and cry.
Alright, this is Boxy, the, I don't know, worst mini-boss ever.
Yeah, one of the worst.
One of the
Well,
worst.
especially a lot difficult Wheel,
Yeah.
because, you know, as XK explained of how Wheel is not invincible when you turn.
Yeah.
And this guy moves a lot.
Into the corner, especially.
It's really bad if he's in the corner, because there's not much you can do.
See if you made the mix.
Yep.
Nice.
So this mix, so there's 2 bomb enemies. It's somewhat of a complicated setup. And the whole point of getting UFO is just to skip going around this room and hitting this bomb block. Over the years, there have been a lot of different ideas on how to do this. For example, just holding onto fire instead of wheel and hitting that bomb block. Using sword and bouncing off of the CPU Kirby's, which is a terrible strat in my opinion. Like it's a great idea, but just terrible in practice.
Only because the like other Kirby's are literally programmed as potatoes in this game.
If they're programmed as potatoes, that'd be great. They'd just stand in one spot, but they really move around like randomly, and it's difficult to manipulate them. But that mix is actually an idea going back all the way to, I want to say 2007. It was done in the first any percent task of this game. And I don't think anyone was really trying to do that in real time until 2015 or so, when a Japanese runner named Yoshi, who's acclaimed for many other runs in the Kirby series, he didn't really spend much time running 80%, but he did, I guess, bring back that idea of doing that mix there. And
I still haven't learned it.
wait, what?
I still haven't learned it.
Nah, it's. Oops.
Also,
It only
that was
saves
the
a few
only time you'll ever see Cutter.
Yep. Well, I'm past Mega Titan, so there's no way it'll come back.
Yeah, there's actually like I don't know how many more abilities. I know there's Cupid, but like there's like a few abilities that you will literally only use for the puzzle and then get rid of immediately because there's something else that's better.
Beam later on.
All right, so there's Beam, Cutter, Cupid, and then Mini. Those are practically the only powers you'll ever see, and then just immediately throw it out.
Yeah.
Probably
So
the coolest ability. Sorry, go ahead.
no. So I just want to say, normally you think of water levels as synonymous with like boring and speedruns. In this game, it's actually quite tense. Especially when
That's a
you,
little bit-
yeah, especially when you want to keep something like stone the entire time here.
Yeah, like it's not. It's very rare you lose it. But if you lose it, you're pretty screwed because there's no doors back. So.
Yeah.
Nice. Didn't kill it fast.
Yeah.
Like all in one go, but good backup strats.
Yeah, so there's actually two components to getting in one cycle. One of them is what I like to call stone speed, which is what your, like, I believe it's like what your vertical speed is before you enter stone affects how the hit lag is, I want to say. And another thing is just getting the right pattern for Gobbler to get Gobbler to stay in one spot the whole time. So it's
If you
pretty-
didn't understand what he meant, it's kind of weird.
yeah.
I think SK is the only one who really understands what's going on with
I
it.
mean, I would say I don't really understand it.
Here is one of my least favorite power-ups in the game, Missile. It's so hard to control. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, I'll give it to SK.
Oh, so Missile is this thing that the sprites for it look like it's just like some simple 8-directional thing, but it's certainly more complicated than that. So one thing that's optimal is that if you do 45, so one thing that happens when you turn is that you can drift sideways with the missile, and the best way of minimizing that is to make these like 45-degree turns. I'm bad at it, so I like to stop in place and then do a 90-degree turn, and that's like a little bit more consistent for me. One other thing about it is how you exit missile is very important. So you bounce in sort of the opposite direction that you're moving in. And it's so much of a difference that it's actually faster in a lot of cases to turn around completely and then explode the missile.
And a really small fact that's not even really important, but it's fun anyways. In the Japanese version, it's slightly stronger like damage ability than it was in like the US version. So like missile just does more damage in the Japanese version. I don't know why.
Alright,
But
so
yeah,
this
that's
is
just another dead end. So
yeah. So this is now we're moving on to Peppermint Palace. The idea behind this route is supposed to be like grouping areas together to hopefully make it easier to follow. So previously that previously that was like the section dedicated to Olive Ocean. This is going to be a section dedicated to Peppermint Palace.
best
I was
music,
gonna
by the way.
Say earlier, the mini boss you killed earlier, it does actually have some bosses have some weaknesses, like that guy is weak to fire.
Right.
And
That's,
Crazy Hand is also weak to fire. I did not know that. It's so weird. But yeah.
yeah. We'll get to that later. But like sort of like the solution to that puzzle was to use fire to kill Frosty, and fire is the only ability, like between fire and ice, fire is the only ability that was able to hit that little switch.
You also have a lot of mini bosses just scattered throughout in these
Right.
random spots.
Yeah, a lot of them you don't even have to like fight. They just like sit in dead ends.
Oh, you better not run around me. Oh darn.
Yeah.
That's my weakness. This is a very complicated area, I think. Peppermint Palace's side areas. A lot of weird chest locations.
Yeah, the way that this was done, nowadays it's done almost entirely with wheel. Back then it was, like a few years ago, it was done using other abilities that, in my opinion, were not as good. For example, you would mix for missile in here, and
That was so
so dumb, so dumb.
Didn't you like also change the like order of which ones you were going for, or am I just mistaken
What do you
that?
mean by that?
Like
Talking about Smash segments or
just that segment right there? I think you like actually went. And
Yeah, so one chest is like has changed segments essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked like going back into old runs, back from like 2013, for example, and seeing the ideas that were used in those runs. Some of it like has directly impacted the current route, even though it's like how it was done in 2013. It got changed, now it got changed back, like that kind of.
Right.
Yeah, lots of different ideas have gone through this route. So now we're heading to probably one of my least favorite segments.
Coming up on the smashed ability section.
No, not yet.
Aw.
But
This segment's actually very fun in my opinion.
yeah, I like it a lot. Except a lot of dumb stuff can happen, but it's fun. Alright, so here's UFO. UFO is not so rare in this game. The idea behind this is do 2 charge shots and do a beam attack, and that bomb bar mini boss is dead. That bomb bar is actually quite tricky. There are a lot of different patterns, and I feel like I haven't really fully understood all those patterns.
Coming up on another mix here.
Yep.
This one's not hard.
Alright. I didn't want to like mess it up after you said it's not hard.
Yeah, because I've messed up a lot of times before.
Yeah, so
that one has a setup compared to most other mixes, so.
yeah, so the thing about that mix is that so it's the first ability on the wheel. So the starting point of the mix wheel depends on the first enemy that you inhale of the 2. And for that one, it so happens that wow, nice luck. It so happens that Hammer is the first ability on the wheel. And unlike this game's direct predecessor, Nightmare in Dreamland, you can't buffer the first ability on the mix wheel, so you do have to time it. But on the other hand, like these mixes, they're like 4-frame windows. The nice thing about this mix is that you can't be too early on it.
It's just not a matter of like trying to time it in the middle of the wheel. It's just something at the very beginning. That's why I said it was easier than most. So.
Right. Alright, I got perfect luck on Wiz. Yeah, Hammer is especially effective for just doing the charge attack on Wiz.
The other strat is to use Umbrella, which is a lot harder in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would say that pretty much every person who runs any percent will go for Umbrella or Parasol.
Just because we don't have access to that easy mix there,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to get the other one. But
So any percent takes a different path to get to Wiz.
that's just the reason it's kind of like cool to see 100% every once in a while, because like you get to see a bunch of rooms that you didn't even know existed if you only watched 100% or any percent.
Yeah. So that's a trick where I don't have to jump over those gaps. I like to say that it's sub-pixel perfect. That is a fact that I have not verified, but I'm pretty sure is true.
How does that work?
It's just like whatever, like depends on your horizontal position before you start the wheel, and then for some reason you just roll over those gaps. Alright, so that was Battlefier. I got really good luck. The main strategy behind it I'll explain for this next fight as well. Alright, convenient wheel enemy right here.
Nice. I can't really remember all the route. It's been a while since I've run 100%, so.
Yeah, no worries. Alright, this thing coming up seems tricky. Hitting just the first spawn block. If you hit the second one, the chest gets blocked off. But because of like hit lag and the fact that Kirby stops when he hits something, the timing for that is a little bit easier than it looks, I suppose. This is double fire. Alright, so I've got 2 things on my mouth, so it'll be a double star. And hopefully I get a good pattern here. So the Boxer mini boss, like the Battlefier one before, actually gets hit twice by the same attack. Properties of double stars, that's common in a lot of Kirby games, that it passes through enemies or blocks or whatever. So actually the Boxer and the Battlefier get hit twice by the same attack, allowing me to kill it in essentially one hit.
Fun fact, I did not know Double Star existed. I thought Triple Star existed and Double Star didn't exist. Because
Where
in
the hell-
Overall's PB, he actually got 3 of them. I don't think he was intentionally doing it.
3 of
but
them?
I thought that meant, oh, I have to suck up all 3 of those guys. And it made a lot of my runs a lot harder than it should have.
Well,
I think this section right here is cool because like using Fighter to get through that first puzzle when he killed the enemy, he actually goes back to your castle to just finish up a few more chests
Right.
with Fighter because it's convenient that he had it right there and it's not far to go. That's just like one of the cool optimizations in 100% of the world.
So we actually kept Fighter for a strat called Hadouken, which is like the worst one ever. Because you have to keep like 1 HP to get one of the chests and Muster Bounty.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it's currently done. So, nice thing about Fighter is that if you're at 1 health, your Hadouken attack will actually go through walls. So that's useful for doing this hitting this one bomb block that's out of the way somewhere else in the game. But of course, you have to be running around with 1 health, which is not fun to anyone.
Not a good strat, but it had a cool name, so that's why I liked it.
Yeah, the idea is cool. It's just I really did not like the fact that if I messed up, I died.
Power's pretty
Yeah. Alright, so that was a pretty good Master Hand fight. This is Smash.
The best segment.
Yeah, hopefully I'm going to be able to keep this for like another 9 minutes or so.
Fight is a lot awkward with Master Hand on... Wait, no, that's not true.
Sorry.
I'm thinking of a different one, never mind.
Yeah, the Master Hand fights, the ones that you see in this game, are all a little bit different from each other. For example, that one, there are those platforms there. Sometimes Master Hand is at a different height, and that can make like the fight like drastically different.
Smash is only available in this game, right?
I guess if you consider like using amiibos or like ability rooms in like Robobot or Dream Collection, but yeah, I'd say it's pretty much just in this one. Like that you can commonly get it.
So like coming back to all version of Smash, once again, really, really scary.
Yeah, so in this part I claim that the developers intended to try to make you lose your ability in every way possible. Just so,
Traps.
yeah, just so to hit this peg, you'd have to go fight Bonkers just to the right of that peg. But since we're able to keep Smash the whole time, not a problem.
Like, I mean, everyone, or like, we keep talking about this Smash segment. It's just like a cool, I don't know, I like this one just because it's like, you take Smash, which has a lot of utility for different puzzles that you can solve with it, and you just go through a bunch of different areas just trying to keep hold of Smash while completing everything.
Right, and the idea behind Smash is that it's like the moveset from Kirby from Super Smash Bros. Melee. And among those things is the final cutter, which you can use to cut string, and also stone/hammer that allows you to break metal blocks or hit pegs. I got pretty good luck on those fish. Alright, this is a neat skip. So if I do 19 of these, whoops.
I thought it was 20. Oh wow.
You can actually do 19, yeah. So 19 to 21 of these final cutters. It's actually moving the block in sort of the wrong way. Oops. But if you abuse Kirby's hitbox a little bit, it's like a little bit smaller, I want to say, on the front side of it than the back. You can sneak through that block. The intended way of doing that is actually to pull the block to the left by having all the other Kirbys help you out. And it's actually, I think, theoretically faster to do it that way. It's just that having the other Kirbys cooperate is rare at best.
I mean, rooms like that where they have a specific puzzle, they only have a programmed, action they do.
Right.
Like even after it's done, they'll just keep doing it in place there.
Yeah. The issue with calling the other Kirbys is that, first of all, if they come in with ability, they'll discard it, and then try inhaling the block, and then end up inhaling the block, like the star that they just discarded. That's one thing. And second of all, one of the Kirbys can just stand in front of the block, so it doesn't move. So overall, like, this is just a billion times more consistent.
Less of a headache and everything.
Yeah.
It is cool though when you have like small strats where those Kirbys actually come in and actually help you.
Yeah.
It's fun being able to use them, but for the most part, they're kind of a pain.
Yeah. Alright, so that fight with Battlefire, I got pretty good luck. Battlefire takes like a random amount of time to do its first attack, and you want it to just stay still. Unlike the previous Battlefire fight, where I actually wanted Battlefire to move as soon as possible.
I don't know if you've done runs where you've lost Smash. There are some like
Oh,
backup
a billion of runs I lost Smash. But yeah, there are a couple of backups. I hope I don't have to do any of them.
I just find it like cool how it's like they have those abilities generally around, so you can like figure out the puzzle like that.
There are some areas where like there's nothing you can really do. Like I think if you lost Smash in all version, I don't know if there's any backup strats, but that would have been pretty bad.
You'd have to fight bonkers, which is not fun.
Yeah, takes like a long time without an ability to.
Yeah. There's I guess I could compile this of backups, but they vary a lot in like how much time they lose, especially later on. So there's one nice place later on in this segment where you can mix for Smash. So that's one thing you can do. But if you lose it at any point beyond that, you've just lost a lot of time. Alright, this is like a
Smash, so.
This is a little bit of a gauntlet. The UFO enemies are quite random. Luckily, I got through it without a problem. The problem with that is that if you lose your star, there's not very many platforms, and it's just like a big abyss where you can really easily lose your lose any ability there.
But yeah, there's a couple enemies where you can mix your Smash down there, so it would have been bad if you lost it.
Yeah, wouldn't have been too bad. Wouldn't have been too bad, but after this point, I really want to keep Smash.
You can only get smashed from like Master Hand or by mixing, so
Yeah.
or from the stand, right?
Yeah, there's like there are these things called copy essences, which are scattered in a couple places, usually near those big switches. The only one that has Smash is like the ability room that unlocks after if you've opened every single shortcut. But by that point, we are like well done with the Smash segment.
Pretty much. We're just getting chests in this area.
Yeah. This is Fan, worst main boss. Luckily, I got a really good pattern.
Fan doesn't really make sense to me about what he gives you as an like ability.
Oh, throw.
Just gives you throw and he's an elephant.
Yeah, but
Well,
he throws you, dude.
Yeah, he throws you. He kills runs by throwing you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like you lose a lot of time if you get grabbed. Another in and out.
Yeah, especially that area, it's on ice, so you can't slip a lot.
Yeah.
So.
So it's hard to stay still when you're using hammer, which is like left or right direction plus B. But luckily, like doing that stone strat, you can get essentially 2/3 of Fan's health just by stoning right at the beginning of the fight. And so you'd only need to do one standing hammer swing to kill it.
What's our next boss then?
Boss?
Should be Master.
Should be Master Hand, yeah.
Master Hand.
Yeah, we'll see. There'll be a few mini bosses before then, though.
Lots of chest collecting.
Yeah,
This
lots
is, like,
of chest
actually
collecting.
A really cool room, I think.
Yeah,
It is.
a lot of traps.
A lot of secret areas too.
Yeah.
I think. Like one of those doors right there, like it goes in the same room, but it's walled off for the other areas. So it's like once you enter that door, you can't go in, come back and go in the other doors.
Right.
But you can visually see, like, oh man, I missed a chest in that area. So it's just kind of like a cool little area, but it, you know, lots of traps, like Sasuke said. Oh, did you explain those rock guys, how they, if they're doing?
Oh yeah, not yet. So these things are called golems. First of all, they're big, and so the whole point about this, the plot in this game, is that Kirby is split into 4, so he doesn't inhale as strong as before. Oops.
And those golems are made out of stone, so if you inhale them, they give you stone. But I think 2 of them, like they're different colors. While they're doing something, like one of them gives you fighter if they're in mid function, and the
Right.
other one, like that one, when he's rolling, will give you wheel for some reason.
Yeah. And there's another attack where still gives you stone, which is where they try to like body slam you. They try to like sit on you. That also gives you stone. And so different golems, there are like specific ones will do specific actions. I think there's even one that can do all 3 different attacks or something like that. I haven't verified that statement myself.
But yeah, now we're on a Candy Constellation though, which again got that 2 stays in the name.
Yeah.
The name.
Yeah, so this is like the bottom half. Like you think of it, is the constellation called Little Dipper or Big Dipper? I never remember. But like the Little Dipper or whatever, it's like a ladle, like the bottom of a ladle at the bottom. It's just like a loop of, in this case, 6 rooms. And the whole gimmick about it is that it's like you get stuck in this loop, and the correct way of going about it is to move from right to left as opposed to left to right as you would normally expect in games.
Candy Constellations, like, I gotta think. I think this is like the craziest segment of any percent at least, just of how many like things you have to avoid. There's also a lot of gaps in this area too that you can fall down and die.
Right, and of course, like losing your ability into those gaps, so on and so forth. I'd say that in 100% it's not so bad.
It's really, I actually find Candy Constellation 100% to be a lot chilled. If you just came out of Smash segment,
Yeah.
it's like laid back.
That's true. That is very true.
So now we're in the upper half. It's like the handle part of the ladle. So
I never actually knew that.
Me neither.
it very vaguely looks like that. That's just like the way I think about it. But there are these dead ends in a lot of places.
Also, something to also kind of like know about as well.
That's a pretty good pattern.
Some like chests and stuff, they don't add a full percentage point to your route.
Right.
So it's like when you look back in the menu and it just gives you like 60%, it could be like 59.5, for example. So it's just like when you're going into the final boss and it shows you percentage, you don't know if you're like actually there or not until you like finish the game and it shows you after the credits that it says 100%. So it's kind of stressful on runs because you could like miss maybe one chest that you just forgot, and your run isn't valid.
Yeah, I think you can see that instance in Mustard Mountain, I believe. I think there's a couple chests, but it'll still stay at like 80% or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I always thought that was fun. Just never get to know until the very, very end.
It sucks because then you'll see it's like 98%. It's like, kill me.
But some of the things that you can get out of chests are actually pretty interesting. You can get, you know, maps for areas, or you can get spray cans, which
Spray cans
basically
are really cool.
lets you color your Kirby different. You never get to see it in a run though, because you have to manually select it every time you
I mean,
reset.
you could see it in run if someone really wants. Wink, wink.
Huh.
And then there are also like little hearts that you can collect as well. SK actually gained a lot of health, because usually you only have 6, but he's collected a few hearts now, and now he has a lot more bars of health.
This is actually really useful, especially in the very last boss. It's really handy for some extra life.
It's true. Better just not get hit though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not good at the game.
Alright, so we're going through the same exact area of Candy Constellation for the 3rd time, and it's unfortunate that like this is sort of unavoidable just because of all the dead ends. So instead of okay, so it's a Metroidvania. It's not like a series of like really interconnected rooms. It's just like it's very tree-like and ends up in a lot of dead ends. So as a result, backtracking is completely necessary and unavoidable in a lot of cases. This maze room is actually can be quite tricky. There are a lot of different ways that you can lose your ability. Just because there's a lot of one-way paths, a lot of like Gordos, like these like spiky enemies.
This is the best room right here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if you figured it out or something, but like, basically those, what are those enemies called? The eye enemies?
Waddle Doos.
Wall of Dews, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Their eye animation of attacking, like one of them is fine, but like multiple ones start attacking on the same screen, it makes the game really lag. So it's hard to do that room specifically sometimes if they start attacking. It makes your game just chug.
I've had instances where the Kirby's are actually near me, not in the same room, they're near me, and then if there's like a Waddle Doo and it casts an attack, game will lag like crazy. It's like,
Another one of those rooms where
Oops.
you have to go fast for the puzzle.
Yeah, this room is like the one that I always point to as the one that really highlights avoiding hit lag. Like you could just go through the bottom of the room and run into like every single enemy, but it's faster and more difficult, of course, to go up top and jump precisely.
Some of the room designs for like the abilities are pretty cool, like that wheel one, and then now the missile movement here is really cool if you pull it off correctly. Really cool if you pull it off.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take the sort of lazy way and skip doing missile one part of it. I mean, I already do a somewhat lazy strat there in the first place.
You just like consistency.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like, I don't know, that's just my philosophy when it comes to running a game like this. Alright, so as we mentioned, Crazy Hand is weak to fire. So I think normally, Crazy Hand is like 80 health, Master Hand is 120, and each hit of fire does 10. But Crazy Hand is weak to fire, so it actually only takes 4 hits with fire to kill.
if it gives you rock though, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Yeah, stone. One thing that I didn't get in that fight that you could get is like the attack where one of them slams their fist down on the ground, and if you inhale one of the stars that pops out from it, you actually get stone from that, and that would actually be, in my opinion, the more ideal way of doing that fight. Alright, I'm gonna sort of iframe abuse right here, just so I can run through that without having to float. Almost screwed that up.
I actually don't know. Was it ever like found out that calling friends or whatever for Master and Crazy Hand, was that like just not fast at all? You know?
Sometimes it can be, but it does take some time to call the friends while like if you call the friends immediately, you do lose out on some of that invulnerability time for Master Hand.
So I always like that, like,
Yeah.
chance of having them help you out.
Right. There's also a big chance that they could cost you time. Like, for example, they take damage and then try to inhale their stars and then take damage again, stuff like that.
Yep.
So I just go without it a lot of the times, unless they really do have like good powers. Like, for example, UFO is a good ability, fire, ice, so on and so forth. Even tornado, surprisingly, I would consider a plus.
So are you
Actually-
coming up on Molly then, or?
Yep. I actually do think some of this movement with rock is pretty interesting because when you use your rock, your momentum kind of brings you forward.
Right. And it's definitely useful for clearing out enemies in this section when all the corners are very tight.
Probably the best boss design I think in the game.
Design.
I
let's,
love the sarcasm.
let's keep it at design.
I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know.
So this is Molly, very random boss. I got good luck here. Nice.
You didn't get to see how great of a boss it was.
Yeah, dude, what a shame. Yeah, so that fight with throw, like, okay, so the only 1% I really know about is that after Molly in my route, the file says 69%. I don't know any other percentage in the game.
I really like that. I remember SK brought it to me the first time. It was really funny. It's just so ironic too, because he's like one of the most dickish bosses out there.
But yeah, so the thing about Molly is that you hold something behind your back, and it'll just constantly do damage to Molly. Of course, you need something to hold behind the back. Molly could just simply not throw something, hide, spawn at the ceiling, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, this mix sucks. Alright, whatever. So I call those. I have a ranking of Sparkies in the game on how much I hate them. So those guys are number 1 and 2.
The thing that sucks about getting hit by like Sparkies as well, like for some reason they also like don't add just like hit animation of you getting hit, but also like paralyzed too. So
Right.
you just sit there for like a few seconds of how much stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, I think it's pretty neat, but in a speedrun
Yeah.
scenario, it's not fun.
I don't think it's fun at all. It sucks.
Whoa. I'll keep it, whatever. Yeah, I can keep it by the end.
So this guy's like kind of showcasing, not on purpose by the way, but like Missile has the potential to like be faster, but if you run into a lot of things or lose it, it's actually slower. So you have to have really good missile movement, which is really hard. Just to be getting any sort of time save on it.
I am currently not getting the time save.
Luckily, it was really close to him when you could have gone it, but if it's like pretty much dropped to the floor, it's probably just better to like leave it, because there is a missile trophy in that room.
Yeah, and the only reason why I mixed for missile in the first place is to break those metal blocks. Otherwise, wheel would have been so much better of an option. Right, so this is, I would say, like one of my least favorite missile sections in the game. This room right here with all the chips, a lot of enemies in this game have random movement patterns, and those ones really get in the way of trying to do missile properly. And over here, there's enemies, this bird, right over a spike, but not a big deal. I'm gonna switch back to wheel in a sec anyways. Alright, so this is, so a lot of these mixes, okay, so on one hand, some of them can be quite precise, like a 4-frame window in a 60 FPS game, but other ones you can just let it run out, and it'll just sort of automatically
And
give you,
power.
yeah, and on the power you want, and of course it's carefully routed to take advantage of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that enemy placement is not fun at all.
Yeah, that's Sword Knight. Randomly decides to swing its sword, and it can block your puff attacks. You've got to be kidding me.
I'm still waiting.
You'll see in a bit.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Sorry, that was too funny.
See, I don't remember that being like in the route when I ran it. I remember
Yeah, that was
there
definitely not it.
you would use the sword actually. There's
Right.
like a few different sections that you use it for.
Right. Yeah, so that's a fairly new reroute, and it takes advantage of the fact that in that room, it's not like you don't need to use the other Kirbys, but if you do call them, they will stand on the switch for you. It saves about 6 seconds overall. What happens is that you end up losing one segment where you start with the wheel building, because I started this segment with the wheel building and lost it right afterwards. At this point, and so of course, like the number of segments that you end with wheel is like the same as the amount that you start with wheel. So that explains some of the extra trips that I've had to just sort of get a wheel enemy and then come back out. Alright, so now on to the rest of the Monster Mountain. This is somewhat tricky mix to set up. Alright, good. And so this is where that, like we were talking about, using the Hadouken from the fighter ability came in. We want to hit that bomb block, but something like fire actually won't hit it. And the issue with using UFO normally is that even though it's not like supremely overpowered in this game, this game doesn't allow you to keep UFO if you return to the home screen. So we have to do that mix there.
Also, shoutouts to Cupid. It's the only time you use this ability.
Yeah. So off screen there was a little string with the platform that I cut down.
So sad. It's actually a fun ability, I think.
Oh, I'm personally like I don't really like it very much.
Causing that mix is actually a lot easier than it looks like. Even though it's marquee, it's actually pretty consistent to pull off. But
Right. Yeah. So
I
yeah.
remember the first time I did it because the mix is pretty much the same in all versions too. So like I was misremembering a lot.
Yeah, so luckily I got candy from the Shadow Kirby. The Shadow Kirby can give you candy, maximum tomato, or a 1-up. Luckily I got candy, so doing that mini boss is a little bit faster. Unfortunately, you can't bring candies into bosses. Otherwise that would be a nice way to save time on these fights. Okay.
The fight looks crazy, but yeah, you just basically, you can do it the way SK does it, which jump above them and just rock down, or you can actually jump towards them and let them like float down into your rock.
Right. So I believe the ladder strat that Gravel was talking about is actually a little bit faster, but much more difficult to do in my opinion.
It looks cooler, that's why I do it.
That's fair. Alright, so if you didn't have some way of hitting that bomb block, you could always go around with the mini ability, but the thing I'm actually going to do here is just enter this room down here. That's the whole point of the segment, is just to enter this one room.
Yeah, it's pretty nice too, because like even if you fail the first time, you pretty much have a second shot to do it again. So you can just go for this first, then go.
Right, exactly.
This is another whole new section that you don't even glance at in 80%, so it's always fun seeing like people go through this area. Especially because like most of any percent movement is a lot of wheel, but in 100%, since wheel isn't always available or they need a certain ability to go through sections, they have to like do a lot different movement, which is kind of fun to watch. There's also a lot of shortcuts to between areas as well. So like this is like near Mustard Mountain because of all the rocks and stuff, but you only get there with the cannon.
Alright, so this is like sort of the proper missile section. Alright, so this is actually one of the first areas we went to, where we went through this with Wheel at the very beginning of the game to get to King Golem, but we're actually going to take a different path. And it's kind of located a little bit deep into here.
Just one of the few times not only do we get some chests and stuff, but there's also a switch. Is that on this section?
Yeah, it is.
In this whole split, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not in this segment in particular.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna sort of damage and swallow immediately just to get past that Gordo. You can run into the door, like right when the Gordo's at the wall, but I haven't been having that much success with it lately, so I just stopped doing it.
This section also is like what he was telling me, the proper missile section. There's a like segment coming up that if you do missile correctly, it will look really nice, and it's a good way to practice it, but it's also very, very hard as well to keep it the entire time.
Yeah, so I like doing these 90-degree turns. It's ugly, and it's a little bit slow, but I'm gonna stick with it. I think this is the section that Gravel was talking about. I already messed it up. Alright, that was pretty good. Yeah, just sneak through. Yeah, so one thing that a tool-assisted run will do is have really, really superhuman control over missile movement. So going through like one-tile gaps, so on and so forth.
For a while, SK didn't even run like missile on any percent. He would just use burning.
I still do.
Oh, you still do that?
Yeah, I still do. Even though, like
Wow, I
in
did not know
100%,
that.
even though in 100%, I do use missile there. I still go with burning in 8% just because. It's like just need to be that like I care that much about consistency. Even though I know how to do it, still want to do the burning way. Because in 8% you go through that room to get to Krakow, and if you want to do it with missile you can, but you need to press an extra switch. And so in this category you press all the switches anyways. So in this category it'd be foolish to go without it. And the other one, you do have to use missile quite well to save not a lot of time, in my opinion.
I don't really get to see much use of out of those shortcut checkpoint things,
Yeah.
but in Radish Ruins you'll see him utilizing it a little bit.
Right. Kinnan tells me not to get these one-ups, so I'm gonna jump over them.
You even lose time.
No, you don't. Unlike most things that you pick up, you don't get any hit lag from eating one-ups.
God damn it, Kidder.
I
Yeah.
think it's just because they look so cute.
Don't want to mess. Don't want to mess with the environment.
Pretty much.
Alright, so a little bit of a windy section. Wow, is that real? That was like really close to gold for me. I guess it didn't really have any big mistakes in it.
No, you're looking good with the wheel. Reddish Ruins is a pretty fun area. Just cause like, I think this place has a lot of cool like wheel movement, just like optimization as well.
Mhm.
It's not bonking and jumping over things.
Yeah, I like the song here. I think it's an underrated song.
That as well. I think the music in this game in general is pretty good.
Yeah.
Music. Also, the background is really good too. Most people don't notice it, but the background art for this game is pretty superb.
Yeah, despite playing this game for like hundreds of hours, I don't really notice the background. Alright, so now that I've opened all the switches, hit all the switches, there's an ability room that unlocks. You can get any ability that you want except for UFO, or I guess like Master Sword, I guess. But it's not faster to visit that room in this category. Or how about, let me put it this way. No one has found a route that effectively takes advantage of that power room.
That's true.
I mean, like this route has a lot of details to it, so definitely has the possibility of being improved. I think it can be improved. I just don't know where.
The run of these like 100% route is actually, I wouldn't say it's like so complicated it's impossible or whatever. It's just like when you're first learning this game, you're just gonna like get a lot of like 99 or 98% complete runs just because of like just forgetting one thing or not used to going back to some areas or something like that. It's a crazy Kirby game.
Could also be what drives most 100% players off, which makes
Wait,
me
what? What did you say?
I was just saying it might be one of the reasons why some players might give up when learning this game, because that is really frustrating when that happens.
Yeah,
Staying
for
all the
sure.
time, so.
I mean, a large majority of runners for this game have only done 8%.
I just think it's like if you want to like learn more mechanics besides just wheel, like 100%'s got a lot of cool things that you can do as well with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love using Smash, in my opinion.
There's
Nice.
also like, oh yeah.
No, I was saying like this is where we actually use this warp. So the room that like where you're falling in between like that actually does count as a separate room, so you do have to visit it. Unfortunately, there's no way like you have to go through the room like all the way through and then all the way back. There just simply isn't a loading zone that takes you back the other direction unless you're going in that direction. So this is probably the easiest of the Master Hand fights that you see in this run. Master Hand stays very close. Oh, come on. It's like the one that I take damage in. Nice. Master Hand stays very close to the floor pretty much the entire time. And so you don't need to worry about stopping wheel, jumping up, and then starting the wheel again, so on and so forth. You can just stay on the ground for pretty much the entire fight.
Also, I like that little ladder section where it's just gonna be enough for you to just jump up with wheel. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the wheel movement here in optimization is really like fun to watch and do. Also, it's gonna just say like the fun things that happen with like Kirby's, like their abilities or whatever in the other sections. Sometimes they can just accidentally like use an ability that affects the room that you're in, like Magic Hat or something.
Yeah.
It's like literally there is nothing that controls it. It's just random. That you could just have something randomly affect what you're doing in your run.
Yeah. And sometimes I've actually like had to reset the room because of something like Meta Knight killing every enemy in the room.
Trying to do a mix.
Yeah.
I've had a Kirby tag along me in Peppermint Palace, Mechanic Constellation, and he destroyed the button in first room Mechanic Constellation, so I had to reset the room.
Okay, this is Master Hand. Not having a good fight here, but it's okay.
Master.
Oh, Meta Knight. Wow, I'm really screwing this up. Alright, final cutters only. Finally. That was a horrendous fight. But Meta Knight's really random, can block a lot of attacks. Basically, every single time I was trying to manipulate him to do a certain attack, he wasn't doing it.
Like, there are ways to kind of like make him sort of do an attack, but like as you're saying, it's just like he still just kind of does whatever he wants to do.
Right.
Also,
So-
I'd like to point out Swordsman Kirby versus Meta Knight.
I was just gonna also throw out that there. So like that was like the final boss of the premiere, and what you saw SK do was he entered in, and normally you'd have to like watch a little cutscene or whatever, but he reset it, and then immediately is starting to go do like more chests that he didn't forget, but just couldn't do earlier. He's gonna clean up before he like goes on to the final boss.
Right, and so the second time I visit that fight, I'll be able to skip that cutscene. It saves, I want to say, 8 seconds in 80%, and it saves, or at least 8 seconds, of course. The fight's a little bit different, but it saves at least 8 seconds in 80%. And I want to say about 13 in 100%.
So yeah, you're gonna get to see the cool cutscene
Meta Knight,
with all your friends and Meta Knight. So
and it's like revealed that the Meta Knight you just fought was not actually the real Meta Knight. Not like you didn't know that already.
Also, I like little route change that happened. I don't know how long ago it was, but
Which
don't
one?
actually have to follow me. I was gonna explain. But like, cause you know how you have to call the Kirby's to another room, but
Mhm.
since you're already doing that in an upcoming section, you don't actually have to do it again, because
Right.
you've already called them.
Right. So that was so I would say I first like seriously ran 100% from like roughly January to late February of 2017, and that was like one of the last additions from that period.
can we just point out how Yellow Kirby was cheating with having UFO?
UFO in the homeroom, yeah. It's not fair.
Just cheating, dude. You better keep it until you go into the final boss.
Oh, it'll affect this part right here.
Is that actually worth doing? Sometimes I do see Kirby of UFO while I'm fighting Darkrai, and I'm like considering calling him.
Look at Kirby, he's trying so hard.
Yeah. So in that room, the CPUs are programmed to slide repeatedly, but if you're UFO, obviously you can't slide. So Kirby's just sort of just dancing in place there. There was one time where Bregman was doing a run, and I think he was on PB pace. So Bregman's a long-time runner / router of this game, and he had two UFOs with two Kirbys with UFO, and then one regular Kirby. So only that one regular Kirby could actually hit the bomb block. But then the regular Kirby got stuck in between the two UFO Kirbys, and he just lost the run because of that. Alright, so that was okay. So the first part of what I call Dark Mind prep is to get the Kirbys out of the way, and so that one segment, I guess, is one possible way of doing that. I mean, you're like, I was gonna call them anyways during that part, so it's good to put it at the end. And you'll notice that I phoned home at the end of that segment. That's because if I were to reset, they would all reappear in the home room.
Also, the fact that they just kind of wander around in random places, anyways. Like Local was saying, he's just like, you can go into a room later on where you haven't unlocked yet or something, but there could just be a Kirby randomly doing stuff in it
Yeah.
and messing up stuff that you're trying to like pull off puzzles or something.
Right.
Kirbys are silly in this game.
So the second segment of this Dark Mind prep section was to get stone, and so now I can skip the cutscene. I've got stone for this Meta Knight fight, and everything's good. You don't have that luxury in 80%, and so you'd actually have to pick up stone and call the Kirbys out of the way separately. That was a so-so
It was okay.
Dark
Yeah,
Meta Knight.
okay.
Wasn't great. So this is the final boss sequence. It's Dark Meta Knight followed by 6 iterations of Dark Mind. All random in their own way. Though I guess the first 2 of these is fairly consistent. So like the Battlefier and Boxer fight earlier, Kirby will Kirby will be able to hit Dark Mind twice with the double star. And for those mini bosses, Battlefier and Boxer, they actually move to the right by themselves. But here, Dark Mind sort of flinches backwards, and then gets hit by the second attack.
Like, this is probably, I think, one of the most tedious parts of this run. Both runs, because you have to fight Dark Mind in both of them. About how you just have to fight the same version, pretty much. Like, the only thing that's really different is the stars he throws out. Like, he gets different ones that he can throw out later, and like red ones give you fire, blue gives you ice, what is it? Purple is electricity, and then green is like a random wheel mix.
Yeah.
Then for Dark Mind 3, there is actually a pretty huge RNG factor. He can give you ice or fire, and you need that for the upcoming room to save some extra bit of time.
Yeah, if you don't have it, you have to go around and get the sword enemy just to hit this switch here.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Like, in between each fight, there's just like a little tiny puzzle room, which I guess is cool, but it's just a stupid fight.
Alright, so in each of the previous phases, if you did the double star twice attack, you kill Dark Mind immediately. This one has a little bit extra health and allows you to mix for UFO if you get the right pattern.
Nice mix.
Thanks. And so, if you're waiting for that green star, there's like 4 different colors of stars you can get. And there are some attacks that Dark Mind does where he doesn't shoot any stars, and some where it's like too hard to actually pick out the one that you like. So, that Dark Mind 4 is a place where a lot of runs end. Nice. Sick.
Sick movement, and then just...
Yeah, and then you get owned by...
Yeah.
Wow, that was probably one of the best Dark Mind 5 fights I've ever had.
Isn't it great that you're not on PB pace for it?
Yeah, of course. And so the thing about Dark Mind 5 is that it closes its eye for a very long time, and when it opens its eyes, the only time it's actually vulnerable. So you need something that does like one hit of like big damage. So UFO turns out to be like the best, most consistent way for that fight. And I got like the 2 patterns I actually want for that phase, and I got the 2 hits I wanted on each of those. So that was overall just a very, very good fight.
If I dragged out any longer, he can do some annoying moves that can also make his eye invincible. So
Yeah.
really good that
All right.
early.
So it's not time yet. It's actually after the credit sequence, just to check if I got 100%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you didn't miss anything.
Okay. Dude, it's good to have co-commentary. They can check for you if you've missed anything.
It really is.
I mean, it seems like you got stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I got stuff. But it doesn't seem like, I don't know. I was comparing against my PB, and it didn't seem like I had any suspicious time saves or anything like that. Alright, so I actually just want to stand in the corner. Sometimes, if you get hit by Dark Mind, the game can lag just a little bit. So I like just, a lot of people just stand in the corner right there. And killing Dark Mind at the end, it's a little bit faster.
Unless, you know, he kind of glitches and doesn't die.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes. Alright, time should be coming up soon on the 100% screen. It's just like one like last cutscene before time.
Little waving Kirby's.
Alright, time. That was 1:10:34 on my time. That is like by far the best marathon run I've had of this game, so that's pretty good.
Woohoo! 100%.
100%, yeah.
That's what you get. A little cute little Kirby screen and a new game mode.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Kirby the Amazing Mirror. I just want to say thanks, Boix, and the other Valuethon staff for having me in this marathon. Thanks, Gravel and Local, for co-commentating with me.
No problem.
Also, like, I really like Boix's profile picture in Discord.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get set up with a Mega Man 9 any percent Proto Man run by Bobby. We'll get that set up here in a second. Stay tuned.